Hey, you are listening to the Oh Crap Potty Training podcast, and I am your host, Janie Glowacki. I am the author of Oh Crap Potty Training and Oh Crap, I Have a Toddler. Before we jump in, if you are watching this on YouTube, I want you to pay attention to what I'm wearing. I'm wearing the softest, most snuggly hoodie. I got it at Target. It's like their brand. It's called Universal Threads. You can order it online. It's $25. And they tout the material as cashmere-like. And generally speaking, I really enjoy wearing like natural fibers, but I got to tell you, this is the coziest sweatshirt you will ever own. I bought two in the two colors they had because I was like, I'm going to trash one of them at some point. So get yourself to Target and get you this cozy sweatshirt, especially if you are in a place where it's cold for the winter. So today I want to talk about the transition from crib to bed. I want to talk about this particularly as it pertains to night training because I get a lot of questions on social media, email. I get a lot of questions about doing night training while your child's in a bed. Now, if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know I am a big proponent of moving the child sooner rather than later. The crib is, for all intents and purposes, a cage. It really is. And we keep our children caged for safety at night. Okay. The problem is a lot of sleep experts now are recommending the child stay in the crib like till 3.5, 4. And that collides with potty training. And what we run into very often is kids who are not self-initiating, kids who don't do independent play, kids who are acting like babies. And a huge milestone is transitioning them to a bed. And I don't say toddler bed because I don't think you need a toddler specific bed. I think that's kind of a waste of money. I think it's far easier to just get a twin mattress or whatever you plan to have for their next step. Now, if the first thing you do in the morning is take your child out of their crib, that is infantilizing them. It is a process of which they're not independent. They need your help, or they're climbing out on their own anyway, which can be dangerous if they get caught on it. So I really do think it's better to move the child sooner rather than later. Montessori has a whole floor bed philosophy, and there are elaborate floor beds. There are do-it-yourself floor beds. You can really just get away with a mattress on the floor, and you can put pool noodles under the fitted sheet so that your child doesn't roll off. But even if they roll off, they're very close to the ground. This allows the child a lot of independence. That's what, Montessori is known for. Yes, they are going to have the ability to get up now, and that is what every parent fears. My theory is if they have been in their crib cage for an extended period of time, they can't wait to bust out. And the older they get, the smarter they are. And the more skills they have. They also know where things are located that they maybe shouldn't get into, and they will get into them. They have skills for climbing up on the counter, getting things out of the cupboards, looking for things in the house, perhaps getting the knives. You run into some trouble. And the reality is, I've heard this said by so many sleep experts that they say, sleep consultants, I should say, right, is that, that is the very thing, kids, when they get older, as they get older, they understand rules better. They understand the expectation. Yeah, no, 3.5 and 4-year-olds are still wreaking havoc on your life. Let's just face it, right? And they are disobeying the rules. It's their developmental job to push the boundaries and sort of disobey and have their own agency. And remember, when we're potty training, right, what is the reason I recommend potty training before 3? Because the individuation process, that's the psychological process by which your child realizes they're separate from you and have free will and choice. This is when you're going to get into the most power struggles. You think you're in power struggles with your 2-year-old, but generally speaking, they just can out emotion you and wear you down. But with 3.5, 4-year-olds, you get into more negotiating skills. It's just the power struggles become huge. You don't want to put pee and poop on top of that. So that individuation process, they realize their body's their own. When you put the crib to bed transition on that older child, they're champing at the bit to get out of there. Why? Because now they know what goes on in the house. They have an agenda. They're going to leave that room with an agenda, and it's not always just to get in bed with you. So again, I think you just set the rule and the boundary when they're young. So when you do that is up to you. I think it really interferes with night training if the child is in a crib. It's really challenging to teach a child to call out for you. And even if you have a monitor, you may sleep through it, or just the travel time getting from your room to their room, they might wet themselves. And I think it's pretty tragic to ask a child to do something and then not give them the opportunity to do it independently, right? Like we're asking the child to call for you or to, attempt to sleep through the night, which they're, you can't talk to them about that. It's just really difficult. And I think that if we're going to ask them to do that, we should give them the opportunity to do it independently. You can't put a potty chair in the crib because it could create a disaster for you, right? The other thing is we do have to help children. We have to help them with a dream pee, a nightly wake up, at least one, if not two in the beginning. We have to help them. And so the older your child gets, the lower that crib setting is. So you're going to kill yourself trying to get that kid out of the crib, pee, and then back into the crib without a full wake up. If you can do it and you've done it, that's great. It's just not what I recommend. So I want to help you though, make this transition. So let's start with the get up, because that's what most people fear is like, oh no, now they can get out of bed. So number one, we set the rule of like, okay, I'm leaving now. And I'll tell you some things to preempt that. Or maybe I'll start with that. Let me think. No, let me do the get-ups first. So your child will inevitably get up. When you move your child to the bed sooner rather than later in their age, what you may find is a magic force field. Like they won't get out of bed at all. They won't get out of bed. They think they still need to call for you to get out of bed. Pascal went through that. I've heard from numerous clients that that's happened, and it can last like 3 to 6 months where they don't get out of bed on their own. They wait for you. So that's kind of awesome because it's the best of both worlds. They call for you, but also they can get out of bed if they want to use the potty, or if you're still doing a wake up, it's much easier for you and your back. You want to keep the potty chair next to the bed for always. If they get up, you have to put them back. And here's the key that works. I swear it works, but you've got to be brutal about it. No interaction. So if you're watching Netflix with your spouse and your little pitter patter of feet, mommy, I need X, Y, and Z. Mommy, I need X, Y, and Z. Okay. You just pick them up, put them back in bed, tuck them in, and leave the room. No talking. No talking. No, I love you. And they may say, mommy, I love you. And you could just put your finger to your lip and tuck them in and leave the room. The first night, this may be many, 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 many times. The second night, it might be a couple of times. And by the third or fourth night, you're all set. But it's key that you don't interact with them, because when you interact, it automatically sets like a conversation in motion. So I love you too. Now they're going to respond, oh mommy, I forgot this, that, or the other thing, or oh daddy, I need this, I need that. And again, we'll talk about that in a second, the I needs. But if you can do this with absolutely no interaction, it goes quickly. Now, a lot of parents will say, there's no way. No, I have to say I love you. I have to kiss them on the forehead. It can feel jarring because you do tuck them in at night and say, I love you, and blah, 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 and you have this like connection at nighttime. That can happen. And I know that it feels wrong. You're like, oh my God, I'm not even saying anything. Your child is well loved. You've said, I love you, I'm sure 1,000 times that day. You're not giving them love by not saying I love you or giving into their, demands, whatever they may be. Again, no interaction. So let's talk about the stalling. Let's talk about the I need. I am a huge proponent of two things. Number one, a whiteboard, even pre-reading. You can do pictures or you can just write very simple words and your child can cross them off. So what you want to do is you want to all the things your kid would potentially ask for. They need their guys. They need another blanket. They need a glass of water. They're still hungry. Whatever the things are, another story, I forgot to tell you, and you want to put them on the whiteboard and you want to cross them off or have your child cross them off, because it's a visual representation that we did all the things, and it's super helpful. And it is also helpful to keep you on track. But here's the thing. Kids usually stall bedtime because that's when they fully decompress. So they want more of you. And a lot of times, especially right now, we've got both parents working or single parents. Some parents are working a couple of jobs. It is a cluster. I hear more and more about people, coming home from work at like 6:30, like no, dinner's not even on the table till 7:00. So your toddler really should be going to bed by then. So things have to get like truncated, and it's not a lot of connection time, which is why I always push for earlier dinners or just very, very simple, just sandwiches, something super easy for dinner. So you have more time to connect, less time like dealing with food, because you have very limited time. Most parents have very limited time in the evening. So they want to connect with you. And so they're stalling. It is a manipulative tactic because they want more of you, which is lovely. Come on. And I know you're tired, but you really they just want a little more connection. So build in, start the routine, all these things are cues for kids, right? Like pajamas on, reading the stories, but allow more time for that connection. Allow more time for some roughhousing, eat a little sandwich. Okay, now we're going to start winding down, and that will help segue. It will give you more time for them to ask all the questions. Ask a lot of questions. Then as you get closer and closer to bedtime, is there anything else you want to tell me? Okay, I'm going to leave the room. When I leave the room, I'm not coming back. Okay, so do you have anything else to say? No, mommy, I love you. Okay, I love you too. And then you go and you do whatever you do. I say, I like to keep the door cracked open. What you do, people have various things they do. If this gets like crazy and if for some reason you can't maintain the no conversation with your child, you can say, if you continue to come out of your room, I will put up a baby gate. Like you got to stay in your bed. So typically though, like I said, the no conversation works like magic, I swear. And then, so you've connected with them, and hopefully you've gotten home, rough house. They've had some sort of big play, maybe a family walk, maybe we're able to go to the playground, an easy dinner, lots of connection time, a couple of stories that are not in bed. True story. I never read at night. I was so exhausted, but Pascal got up early in the morning. So we always read stories in the morning, but by nighttime, it had to be one book. I just couldn't. I couldn't read. I'd just fall asleep. So those are options as well. But you can use story time. Does not have to be when you're in PJs and in bed. It can be just out in the house, and it can be awesome. Now, one thing I talked about this a lot on my other podcast. Circadian rhythm is super tied to light. So when we see sunrise in the morning and when we see sunset in the evening, that is looking at sunrise in the morning is how you get your melatonin for later in the day. So be really cautious at nighttime about LED lights, big overhead lights, and blue light. So if your child has some screen time, I would get kids blue blockers. The blue light tells your body that it's wake up time. So if you're coming home and, from a long day at work and it's 5:00, I'm recording this podcast right now. It's 5:30. It's pitch black. So we still have some long days ahead of us, right? Some short days ahead of us, some long darkness. You go into your house and you flick on all the lights are LED now. So you got big lights in the kitchen. So the body is stimulated to think it's daytime. So a lot of times I think this is what's up with the sleep struggles. So as soon as you possibly can, candlelight or red light bulbs, you can easily get them on Amazon as much as you can in your house. It mimics firelight and it tells the body to start shutting down. That's when melatonin gets released. So that's really important for little kids because their bodies are so sensitive. I struggle in the winter as much as it's my favorite season because my melatonin is so on track. My circadian rhythm is so locked in. When the sun goes down, my melatonin gets released and I struggle after 4:30. I have to make a list of things to do and kind of keep moving just so I call it legal bedtime. I usually go to bed at 8 in the winter, but I just struggle to get to legal bedtime after the sun sets. So that's what you want to create in your child. And we just have so much light that is interfering with bedtime. I also suggest motion sensitive night lights that are red light. You can get those on Amazon. I think I got mine. It's like a 2-pack for $10. And so that can be in their room should they have to potty. But it can also be in the house. And if you can do candlelight or tea lights or even fit the fake candlelight, that is preferable to the overhead lights or the big LED lights that are throughout the house. That will help like in an amazing amount. And the other thing, the flip side of that is if you can, and I know everybody's schedule is different, but if you can get outside upon sunrise, even in the cold, even just for 10 minutes and just look at that morning sunlight. I call it the colostrum of sunlight. It's really beneficial for the melatonin later in the day. So those are huge, huge things. I really, really, really recommend those because you can like knock your kid out just with sunlight. And then again, I think physical activity, there's some real good things. Like if you are on Instagram, you can look up accounts like sensory play before bed. There's some really cool things that can facilitate, proprioceptive and vestibular input that help actually wind the child down. And I used to be one of those people too, who was like, don't roughhouse, don't shake the kid up, no big play. Like everything should be like centered around winding down. But for a lot of kids, if they've been in preschool, they've had to play by the rules all the time. They've been told what to do. And so they do need this big play. One of the best things you can do is if you have another adult in the house, you can take both ends of a sheet, put the child in the middle, kind of like a cocoon, and swing. And that really helps settle the central nervous system. So I really suggest some of that earlier in the evening just to get that energy out, get that, those wiggles out. I just said on my other podcast, I think with the darkness makes us think we have to be inside. Family walks after dark are awesome. Get a headlamp, a flashlight, glow sticks, go for a little walk if you can. Obviously, if you live in a safe area, obviously, if it's not like 20 below. But that can be really beneficial because we want to like truncate the nighttime routine, but get some big play in there and get some, and then get that red light going and then move things along for bedtime and get them wound up. I don't know if you guys have ever flown over Greenwich Mean Time. We went to Bali years ago and we flew Korean Air, which was spectacular, but you're on the longest flight ever. It was 24 hours of travel, but on the long flight, what they do is you don't see nighttime. It's only sun. And so they shut the windows, they jack up the heat, they feed you a big meal, and then your body is just like, oh, it's nighttime. So then you sleep. And then after 8 hours, they raise the windows, they serve you breakfast and coffee. Even though there was no darkness, they just made it so that they manufactured the conditions so that you slept. And so I think that's what the red light does, and like getting their wiggles out. And then lastly, before you night train, guys, we got to deal with these sleep sacks. I guess kids love them. I don't know. They got really popular after Pascal was older. So I don't quite see the allure, but people love them and the kids love them, and the kids get like fanatical about them. So if you are using a sleep sack, I would try to phase it out younger rather than later. It becomes tremendously hard to night train, and it becomes tremendously hard for them to like navigate themselves. So I would try to ditch that earlier rather than keeping it. And I think if your child, this is a tough one because I hear this from so many people, which is like, sleep is so important and kids are struggling with sleep. I really think it's the light environment. I really do. And the blue light from screens. And that's when we tend to let some kids have screen time. And it's everywhere. It's in the television. It's not just phones and iPads and things. So I encourage you to look at that. But we start relying on these crutches, and then we have crutches that start to disable the kids, always using a sound machine, blackout curtains. Like you go to travel and you have a whole suitcase devoted to like sleep. So I would try to get rid of some of these crutches a little bit earlier before they become super entrenched habits. The sleep sack is one of them. We always run into this when working with clients and night training. So the best thing I've heard clients do is take the sleep sack, make it into a pillow. There are even services that can take clothes and make them into like stuffed animals. So I would try to do that and break your child of that habit. Same thing with like always the amount of people who say, no, they need a bottle of milk before bed. I have like 3, 4, and 5-year-olds who are having bottles of milk before bed. Get rid of that bottle habit as soon as you can, right? Like we don't want milk, especially if they're not brushing their teeth after, because the milk will pool. It's got sugars in it. It can contribute to bottle rot. So I would get rid of that habit too. And how we do that, the best way to get rid of the bottle habit is separate the liquid from the bottle. So, if your child has a bottle of milk, I would put the milk in a regular open cup. They can still have milk before bed. It's on the table. It's before the bedtime routine, before they brush their teeth. That's their evening milk. The bottle gets water. They can have their bottle. It's going to be tremendously hard to night train if they're taking in a lot of fluids before bedtime. That's your option, but that's how you break the habit. So if you are not night training yet and you're looking at night training, I would definitely work on that. If you're giving a bottle of milk right before bed, break that habit now by separating the fluid from the container, and that often helps. Another thing you can do with a bottle is do the same thing as you can do with a pacifier, which is slowly enlarge the opening. Because the suction, a lot of kids linger with a bottle because it's an interactive pacifier. So it's self-soothing to suck. And if you open that aperture of the bottle nipple, it becomes unsatisfying. Like the liquid just comes through and then they just kind of voluntarily give it up. So that's kind of awesome. So yeah, the sleep sack and the bottle before bed, those are going to be, I understand that they're crutches, and I do understand, we talk about this a lot on Oh Crap Parenting podcast. What we do in the moment can really screw us in the long run. So I know you're just trying to get sleep. I know you're just trying to do the best for your child's sleep, but what I'm seeing a lot in my work is sleep that is so delicate, it can't be disrupted. And so I really think it's worth digging into, circadian rhythm, the light situation, and getting to the root cause of it, because I've never seen so many toddlers up way too late. That messes with night training. It really messes with their cognition. Even losing an hour of sleep a night after recommended amounts can really hurt a child's development. So I know that you're doing your best. I know that you're employing these crutches to help you get better sleep, to help them get better sleep. But oftentimes these crutches do end up disabling you down the road. So take a hard look at them while your kid's a little bit younger, because like all things, the longer a habit goes on, the harder it is to break it. All right. I hope you found that helpful. As always, I appreciate you guys listening. And don't forget, you guys, if you have pee and poop withholding problems, we just released our pee solutions course. So I had a poop solutions course for a long time helping poop withholding, but pee withholding has become really rampant. So I made a course on that. So please visit my website and check those out. And we also have a pee and poop group. So this is a group setting of parents going through the pee and poop withholding. You get personalized help from me. When it's busy, we do live Zoom calls. Right now it's not terribly busy. So then we just answer individually. So you can join those, and I'll put those links in the show notes if you are struggling with pee or poop withholding, because it's pretty rampant right now. All right, you guys, as always, I appreciate you listening, and rock on and have a beautiful day.